Hello and welcome to TPCast number 89. Surprise, surprise, we're back. I think this is at least the second one that we've done this year.
It is the second one we've done this year. That's correct.
Yeah, it's our biannual TPCast.
So that's good that we got at least two in.
Yeah. That might be a record. At least over the last 5 years or so.
Yeah.
It's probably a record low.
We should introduce ourselves.
Yeah. So I'm Lane.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Kevin.
So the last podcast that we did was around late June.
Summertime.
Mm-hmm.
It's now wintertime.
We had about a month prior returned from our trip to Disneyland. And this time we just returned from our trip to Disney World.
Really?
No. You don't remember?
Yeah, that was news to me.
That would have been nice, though.
Yeah, so we've had some little releases, some things that we'd like to talk about. But the main thing, really the whole reason we started this podcast is so that we could talk about ourselves and what we've been up to.
And what we enjoy.
Yeah, that too. But
I enjoy talking about myself.
But mainly in the video creation department and the Thomas Productions department, which we haven't really been doing, honestly.
You could say that maybe we haven't been making Thomas Productions content, but we have been making content with the three of us and maybe other people too.
Yeah. It's just stuff that no one's seen yet. So, leading into that, on our last podcast, one of the things that we talked about was that Kevin had written a feature-length screenplay and was crowdfunding it. So, we have some developments on that.
The crowdfund fell apart, and we didn't make the movie. No, that's a joke. We the crowdfund did really, really well. We made a lot more money than I was expecting to.
The crowdfund actually failed. It did not reach its goal.
Well, it didn't reach its goal, but the goal was set pretty high anyway. So I
more
made,
than you expected.
I made more money than I'm not going to say than I needed because we're going to end up using all of it. But even after having finished shooting the movie, we still have a couple $1,000s left.
You got above the bare bones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's going to help the post-production and the festival submission fees. But yeah, so over the summer, pretty much every weekend for about 2 months, we shot our very first live-action feature film. I directed it, and Lane was actually behind the camera. He shot the entire thing. And Kyle recorded all the audio for us.
I was behind the microphone.
Kyle was behind the microphone. And it was a blast. It was 19 days of shooting. We went all over California. I mean, not really, but we shot in quite a few different cities and locations. Even one of our locations, we had to take a 2-hour road trip to get to it and then shoot in 105-degree weather. But so we've been editing it since the end of the summertime, and we have the movie done enough that you can watch it, and people have watched it actually because we did a test screening to see how our cut was working and got some really good reactions and some good feedback. And now we're partway through coloring it. And then it's music time, and then it's pretty much done. So we got a couple months left of that. But I think it went really, really well. I think it's definitely, if you've seen my short films, the quality of pretty much every department, acting, directing, writing, it all went.
It's starting from pretty much like in terms of us as filmmakers, and then also I feel like the cast, like the quality bar started with the shorts that we did and has just gone up.
Yeah, and like what Lane mentioned, the cast, I talked about this on the last podcast. I remember I casted it by actually having real actors audition and send me their auditions and then interview them and pick the best people, which I'd never done before. So really, there's like, I keep saying real actors, but yeah, like real studied, trained professional actors in this thing. So just the caliber of acting is a step above what I've done before. And also it made directing it really easy because it was easier to direct the performances. So that helped a lot. And it was just so much fun. Those 19 days of shooting were just the 19 best days ever, at least for me. So I had a lot of fun, and I know you guys had some fun too.
Yeah. So, did you want to detail any more about like the shooting process? Because what we ended up doing was it was throughout the month of July and August, pretty much every weekend we were filming. And so on this, you were kind of like, I mean, obviously you're the director and screenwriter, but you were also the producer organizing it all and getting locations and all that.
I mean, what was ridiculous is that even like a couple weeks into shooting, I still hadn't finished, there was a role that I needed to cast and locations that I hadn't gotten. And like, I needed a old fancy car. Somehow I ended up with one of those. I needed a motel. I needed a restaurant. I needed a field. And I got everything that I needed, which is ridiculous. But a lot of that was just through the generosity of the cast, who either had things available or knew people that were willing to help out, which was awesome. So, I mean, I keep talking about the cast. These guys were just so passionate about this project, and they really helped in so many more ways than just being an actor in it, helping me get these other locations and things that I needed. And oftentimes they would just show up on their days off to hang out or help out.
Yeah. So even though like, which this is kind of new for us, like actually having kind of like a budget to do stuff with, as far as like movies go, this is like scraping the bottom of the barrel in terms of like a feature length film budget. So it was like very indie in that everyone did multiple things, and
it was also very indie.
And was helping out.
The entire crew is the three of us, pretty much.
Yeah, and then we had like one of the actors did all the makeup too, and sometimes an actor who wasn't doing anything would be working the slate or
holding a diffuser.
And just by nature of the way we were shooting and had it scheduled out, oftentimes there were you're shooting one end of a scene and then the other actor that's supposed to be there isn't there, and so we just have some other actor who showed up that day to read lines for somebody else, and that happened all the time. And it got to the point now where watching it, I can't remember who was where on what days. It just all works so well, which is really cool with the edit. But yeah, producing it was a huge pain. I always say producing is my least favorite part of the film making process because it's so stressful. But we got it done, and I'm very proud of that.
Kyle, is there anything, because you had done like some audio stuff like on our videos before.
Kyle's choking right now.
It's well
That's so embarrassing. That happened to me. I'm not even kidding. Yesterday and 2 days before that, I started just choking, and it's like, this is not a great time in American history to start choking in front of people.
Yeah.
Go on.
On that note, so Kyle, you had done like audio on our videos before, but this was kind of like your first like big, I don't know, quote, big time.
So
like
I had
being
never
just dedicated to audio.
Right. So I guess technically my title is boom operator.
You're more than that.
Audio
sound mix.
So I was the boom operator and the sound recorder.
Sound recordist
operator.
I don't know what the term is, but
we'll figure that out when we do the credits.
I had not like done that, like when we were doing like just regular videos, just the three of us.
We had the microphone attached to the camera.
Yeah, the microphone attached to the camera, like a shotgun mic on top of the camera, so wherever you're pointing the camera is also where the microphone is pointing. It's not how you do it on professional film
set.
like this one. So this was, like a couple weeks before we shot the movie, we did another short, kind of just like a test.
It was a nice kind of like warm up.
Yeah, because we
were all doing the roles that we were going to be doing for filming
right.
the feature. So we kind of got used to it and kind of like, quote, like got warmed up.
Yeah, and we all, or Lane, you and me, kind of had a promotion from what we've been doing in the past.
Yes.
Where I was usually the guy clapping the slate, and Lane is usually the guy doing what I did, the boom and the sound recording. So when we were doing this little warm up, you could say, Lane gave me a quick crash course. It was like, I didn't even know if I was gonna, be there. I was like, oh, can I come and help? Yeah, sure. And then needed somebody to hold the mic. So I learned how to do that, and I actually fell in love with it. Like Kevin says, oh, I don't want to do that. That sounds like boring or like not fun or whatever. But I
would rather direct.
I really liked doing it. I felt really helpful. Helpful than
Kyle was actually very helpful.
I felt like I was more helpful than I had been holding the slate, because I was so intently listening to everything, and I could hear somebody saying like, that line doesn't sound right. That grammatically it doesn't make any sense, or like
emphasize this word,
or like don't say your line as you're closing the door, because
it's getting covered up.
Yeah. So and stuff that like, not everyone else notices, but I did. So I like that process of it. But what I was also doing on set was I was making a behind the scenes documentary.
Well, you weren't doing that on set. You were.
I was kind of doing.
You
that
were
on set.
filming. And getting interviews.
So yeah, Kevin asked me to make a little behind the scenes. Didn't know what it was going to end up being when he asked me, but it ended up being a 30-minute.
Yeah, is it going to be 5 minutes? Is it going to be 2 hours?
So what I kind of did was I would just like pull the actors aside when there was a moment and ask them usually all the same questions, like, introduce yourself, who you're playing, what has your experience been on set, what was your audition process like, how do you like working with Kevin, and then I would also shoot interviews with like Lane or Kevin, and just get like a lot of behind the scenes footage of whenever I wasn't needed to hold the mic, I could record like
B-roll.
Kevin talking to actors or rehearsals or stuff like that.
It's cool behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, and I had fun doing that, even though I hate iMovie.
This documentary, by the way, it was made as a reward for a certain tier of backing the crowdfund, but I'll probably make it public at some point so you guys can see it, because it's really cool.
I think it is a really good look at how we kind of did it, because this isn't made like a Hollywood movie. It's not sound stages, big budget, big crew. It was
in fact, when Lane mentioned we're like scraping the bottom of the barrel in terms of budget, one of our actors at one point said that he did the math on how much this movie would have cost if we were like paying actors the SAG rate and everything, and he said we would have needed $150,000 budget for this movie.
Wow.
I believe it.
Yeah, that's another thing.
We didn't make that much with the crowdfund, by the way.
Another thing is that these are like really, really super talented actors that all agreed to do it for free, which is crazy and kind of unprecedented.
Because they haven't blown up yet.
One of these actors, I don't know if you knew this, Lane, studied acting abroad in Moscow, Russia.
I think I had heard that at one point.
That it was like, where he wanted to see where a lot of popular theater kind of acting originated. And
also, people were traveling to be in this movie. We had one actor come from LA, one actor come from Colorado, and then another couple actors were driving like an hour and a half or 2 hours to set every day, just to do this, because the script is that good, and the opportunity to work with the three of us is also a big draw. No, but honestly, like when I interview these actors, oftentimes it's just a good time interviewing them, and we get along really well. And that's when they get after, because at that point they haven't read the script too. They just read the sides for the audition. So I'll talk to them about the movie and myself and how it's going to work, and then I send them the script. And after meeting me and reading the script, then it's usually, hell yeah, let's do it. Because it was that good. It really was an awesome script. But Lane, I want to hear about what you have to say about your experience shooting it.
Yeah, so going into it, I think I was originally supposed to be like the sound guy, essentially.
Because that's what you had done before.
Yeah, because
that's kind of just what we assumed was going to happen.
That was like my default role when making the shorts. But going into this, Kevin was having a hard time finding a DP to shoot it and light it and work the camera.
Unfortunately, my usual guy had moved away and was unavailable.
So we essentially, Kevin asked me to do it. And so I, at
Do you
first,
remember what you said?
I probably don't exactly, but I kind of like trepidatiously accepted being like the stand-in guy. Because
I was intending on getting somebody.
Yeah.
We had our shoot date coming up and I didn't have anybody yet. And I was like, Lane, first weekend, just do these first few scenes and I'm working on getting somebody.
Mm-hmm. Because for all the stuff that we have shot over the years, I feel like one thing that we haven't really had as much experience with is lighting and getting all that. So I was feeling kind of nervous about that and having, not as much experience as obviously someone who specializes in it. So we started shooting and based on my memory, I feel like the very first day
which was a 12-hour
shooting
day.
Yeah, which we tried to get like as much done as possible. We filmed like day stuff and night stuff in it. Going into it, it was, I don't know, I kind of felt very much like, I don't know, having to fortify myself to be prepared for anything because you don't know how things are going to go, if you're going to encounter problems or other like logistical difficulties. But then everything went like the smoothest it could possibly go.
Yeah. And that wasn't just the first day. It was pretty much the entire thing. We were so lucky.
Well, then moving on to the second day was interesting because the scene that we shot, which was in the living room, right? And it was the nighttime scene, and it was like 12 o'clock.
PM.
Yeah, it was in the middle of the day. And we had like an hour or so to just set that up beforehand, like before any actors got there. And it was just you and me. And we blocked out all the light. And then, oh my God, I'm getting a phone call. We blocked out all the light, and then we just played around with lights and got that done for like an hour or so. And that was fun too. And we were able to really set that scene, and having that time to set up probably helped you at least feel better.
Yeah. It definitely, starting out, I was definitely like asking you like and treating like the lighting as like a collaboration. Not like that wasn't like happening later on, but I felt like I gained a little more confidence and knowledge of kind of like what to do.
You had also said that you were kind of absorbing all the information from the last movies we had done from the DP we usually work with.
I mean, that definitely helped.
Because it's still all a mystery to me. I'm like, I don't know where to put that light.
Yeah, to like view kind of like what other people do and stuff. And not to say that I could do it like any better than him, because he has way more experience. But that definitely helped as like a jumping off point.
And then I think what was really great was after our first 2 weeks of shooting, we put together a sizzle reel to help, promote the movie and the crowdfund, and which was still going on at that time. And we got lots and lots of great reactions about the cinematography and specifically the lighting too. A lot of people mentioned like, oh, great lighting. And that was on our first 4 most inexperienced days of shooting. So immediately we had confidence that our footage was looking great, and it still does.
While you mentioned the sizzle reel, as far as I know, that is kind of like the only official piece of like media that everyone can go out and watch right now. So where could they find that if they wanted to take a look at
if
stuff?
you YouTube search, you can search my name or the movie title, which is Losers of Eden. It should come up. You can find it. I think you can find it on my Instagram page. I also just made an Instagram page for the movie at Losers of Eden, and it's linked on there too. So you can find that. There is also, I made a teaser for the movie that's not publicly available, but because that was just sent out to the backers and the cast and whatnot. And even though there were about 50 or so backers and maybe total in the cast and crew, like less than 15 people, that unlisted movie trailer has like 400 views. So it's being sent around to different people, and I'll show it to you if you want to see it. Just hit me up. I'll send it to you. It's just not public. Speaking of, though, Lane, this will be news to you. A couple days ago, just for fun, I started making a trailer for the movie to see what I can do. And it's been pretty fun. It's coming out pretty well, I think. My goal for the movie trailer is to show off enough that, you know, it makes you want to see it, like, okay, this looks really good. Show off a bit of what the movie's about, but not give too much away. So that's kind of a challenge, but also very fun. And it's coming out really well. So, and that I think I will make publicly available as soon as I can.
All right.
So, Lane, you know, going into this one, you know, you didn't know for sure that you were going to be the DP, but you did know you're going to be the editor.
Yes.
Now, I feel like having you do both was actually really great because you're able to say to Kevin, you know what? Here's a shot that I want to get because we're going to need this in the edit. Or Kevin, I remember there were times Kevin was like, you know what, we can skip the shot. And you're like, hold on, I want this one.
Yeah. Or I'll just turn to Lane and be like, Lane, do you think we're going to want to cut to this at this point? And you'd say, yeah, I think so. Like, okay, we got one more shot to do, guys.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was actually really helpful, I think, to have you on the set and ask you about the editing, how that's going to work. But the editing has been going really well. And I think it has been very easy to put together. And I mean that in like, obviously it's a lot of hard work, but it just came together really well. You know, we didn't run into any major problems. And I think you and I, for having been, you know, working together for so long, we just work really well together in the editing room. And it's so great to, you know, just have conversations about like, okay, here's 2 takes that we can't decide between. And then let's just watch them over and over again and list the pros and cons of both. And then we'll pick one. And if it doesn't work in the edit, we'll make it work. And also, Lane does a very good job at convincing me that my opinions are wrong and his opinions are right. Like, I remember one time I was like, well, this shot, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, if that's the only reason you're thinking, don't even think about it. I'm like, okay, you're right.
Like choosing like a shot because it's like more in line with like the continuity in terms of like someone's like position or like a background object, choosing that over a better performance. To me, if, you know, obviously if that error isn't, you know, egregious enough, I choose the performance. Or at the very least, I would usually have a reason that I would tell you as to why I had chosen the take that I put in there.
Yeah, that was really cool too, is you often had a reason and I would be like, why did you choose this take over this other one? And you would list your reason and I'd be like, oh yeah, wow, okay. I think we'll go with this one then.
And then for the really tough times when really neither of us can decide, Kyle is kind of the mediator and gives the third opinion.
And then my favorite take wins.
Occasionally.
Yeah. Well, I also am able to do what you can do and say, you know what, I like this take because blah blah blah, which I enjoy doing. I like having my input everywhere.
And then we also, like I said earlier, we did a test screening, which is really cool because I did an anonymous Google survey when it was over, and I asked all these smart questions, and we got some really cool feedback. And because it was anonymous, people could, not worry about hurting our feelings or anything, which didn't happen. But one of the questions was, did you notice any continuity errors? And most people said no. And there were some, but I'm guessing because there were also cast members there. I think the people who noticed the continuity errors may have been the cast members who knew about them already because they were there on set.
That test screening that we did, one of the things that surprised me was that pretty much all of the jokes had kind of landed really well. And there was some that I was like thinking ahead of time, you know what, this is not that important. It could be cut if it doesn't work, and the scene will still work, and then it would get a laugh and it'd be like, damn.
Yeah. And then what was really awesome is like parts that I didn't think were supposed to be funny getting laughs, and it's like, oh wow, that's cool. I guess that is funny.
Yeah, it really is different when I guess we've just been used to it for the past like 6+ months, and then to have people come in and see it for either the first time or see it in that form in that succession for the first time.
Yeah. And just with an audience, to see it like with a group of people watching it for the first time, there's like an energy in the room, it's really cool. It was like, for me, almost like seeing it for the first time, even though I had watched it so many times. It felt different seeing it with people.
So, Lane, let me ask you, I think I've asked you this before, but let's get a public answer. And I don't remember the answer either. Is, like I had said, I really enjoy doing the sound, and that was what you always used to do. Mm-hmm. Did you enjoy it too? Or was it...
I get the feeling that I didn't enjoy it as much as you. Right. I feel like mainly it was kind of a position of circumstance. I felt like... I don't know, almost that I had a responsibility to do it. Like, since someone else was taking care of like the actual shooting and filming of it, I felt like the sound was, I don't know, I guess the next
something that you could
best thing
the
that
next,
you could
like,
offer.
Yeah, biggest responsibility where a situation where
you're the man for the job.
Yeah, I don't want to say like I couldn't trust anyone else. Because obviously, Kyle, you did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
But I felt like...
Yeah, the movie sounds great. By the way.
No, it really does. There's so, like, I'm listening to a scene, it's like, that's crisp audio right there.
But I felt like I could trust... Like, I would trust myself more to get it right.
That's an interesting answer. Did you enjoy being the DP more?
That is I feel like a double-edged sword. Like, I feel like I'm more proud of the results, and like proud because like you come out with like that finished image and you're like, wow, I set up the lighting. Yeah. I was the cameraman on it. That looks really good. But then in the moment on set, I felt like I was way more busy. So I felt like that maybe detracted from me being able to just like enjoy like the experience in the moment, just because I was doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel sometimes too. Like, as a director, I think I'm constantly busy, either, talking to actors or just setting up a shot with you, and just constantly thinking. Like, you're always thinking as a director, and if you're not thinking, you're talking. And it's just like similar to being the DP, it is constant work. There's no time where you're not doing something. So it gets, pretty exhausting at the end of the day. You're very tired, and it makes it very easy to fall asleep, which is great. But as far as like enjoying it in the moment, directing is my favorite thing on the planet. So that's why I said like those 19 days of shooting where it's just constant doing my favorite thing, and with that specific group of people, that there's nobody that I didn't like hanging out with, and it's like you're hanging out with them all day long because shooting days are long. So that was just a blast for me, and I definitely am able to enjoy it in the moment, and then when it's all over and you're thinking about like, oh god, yesterday that was just so much fun. So for me, it was a lot of fun. But I mean, you weren't not having fun.
Yeah.
So Lane, having done both, then is there one you'd say you prefer?
That's hard. I don't know. That's hard to answer. Like,
all right, Lane, we're going to make a movie tomorrow, and I need you to do one of the two. Which do you want to do?
I feel like I would do DP. I'd say with the caveat that you're doing sound, because now I can trust you.
How about this, Lane? Because now you've done sound, you've done shooting, and you're doing the editing and the coloring, the composing, all this stuff. What is your favorite part?
Oh, that's really tough. I feel like it's...
If you say editing when I'm not in the room, I'm going to be so offended. The only time I'm not there. No, I'm just kidding.
I'd say it's... My knee-jerk reaction is editing and composing. For editing, it's like when you're kind of... It's less fun like picking the shots that you want to do, and it's more fun once you get them all into the timeline and you're tightening things up so that it creates the flow.
Do you remember there was a day when we were editing, and I can't remember what scene it was. I think it might have been actually the restaurant scene.
I remember. I don't remember which scene, but I do remember kind of what I said.
Yeah, because we had like picked out all the shots, and then Lane was like messing with all the timing and getting it to go from that super rough cut to a much more polished thing. And you just like, without even you unprompted, you were like, now this is the fun part.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so this is what Lane enjoys. So I was going to say, you know what? I guess I could have answered that question for you. That's the fun part for you.
So yeah, you guys were talking about what's your favorite part of doing.
We don't care about you.
No, well, too bad. Like Kevin says, oh, I hate producing. Yeah. That does suck. That's the stressful part. But what I want to say is that the on-set stuff has always been the most fun. And I've said this before. I don't want the shooting day to end. Like when Kevin's totally. Like, oh, we only have 2 shots left. It's like, no, I want to keep going. And then like, Kevin's like, oh, I'm exhausted at the end of the day. It's like, well, I could keep going.
Well, no, I could always keep going. Absolutely. I want to do it all day long. And I also am disappointed when it's the end of the day, unless it's like, like when we were shooting out in the field and it was 100 degrees and we were going to do one more shot. And I was like, you know what? Never mind. We're done.
Yeah. Cause that was one day where we had, they had this drone that we were using, to fly around and get cool shots. And that was the thing that we did last. And so there was very much a feeling, even though we could have like messed around with the drone and I don't know, tried out some cool stuff while we were there. The attitude of everyone around me was very much like, let's just get this and leave.
Yeah. And that was a day where, like, I'm not going to spoil anything really, but let's just say that, so I'm also in the movie. I was pulling like quadruple duty on this movie. I did so much. So I was acting in it. And that day, I was in that scene. I was wearing keep in mind, it's 105 degrees.
You're wearing kind of like what you are now.
Yeah, only... It was a gray t-shirt, dark gray t-shirt, black denim jacket, black jeans, boots. So I am so
uncomfortable
hot.
Boots.
Yeah, uncomfortable. I'm so hot. I'm sweating. All of my acting in the scene is not acting at all. It's just me being like...
There's an unusable take, and it's unusable because Kevin's face is so beady with sweat.
And I did have to get beat up and roll around on the ground. And there's like... So I have long hair too, so there's like foxtails getting caught in my hair and everything. Oh my God. That was when I was like, oh, we were going to do one more shot of this, but you know what? No, we're not. We're done.
That was also, there was like, talking about getting beat up. That was one that we just did one take of each angle.
Yeah.
It's like, we're not going to do that again.
Would
Also-
you want to roll around on the ground twice?
Hey,
in
that was
day?
that was also
Yeah.
my least favorite day because of how hot and miserable it was. I would always much rather be cold than hot. And here's the thing. I would also rather be miserable and sweaty than get a sunburn.
Mhm.
So I was wearing long, like, kind of breathable, but long sleeves, jeans, and a hat. And so, yeah, I was uncomfortable all day.
Yeah, I definitely would take the same attitude.
Mm-hmm.
I also dress similarly.
Yeah.
I got sunburned a few times shooting that movie because, like, at the motel. So that was hot because it was
In a parking lot.
It was a parking lot that's like surrounded on all sides, so it just bakes. And then we're shooting some scenes outside
no
in the middle of the
shade.
day. Yeah, no shade. Outside, middle of the day, and it gets hot. And then
Yeah, it's like you look at the temperature on your phone and you're like, oh, it's only supposed to be like 80 degrees, but it feels like 95 because of just where we were. in
yeah,
the parking
and then
lot.
it's the same. It's like a desert. You know how a desert gets super cold at night. It's the same thing. We're shooting outside at night, and it didn't get freezing cold, but it was very cold out in the parking lot at night too. Lane's like, I don't remember that.
I don't
I
remember
was
that.
moving around.
I don't
so
remember that
much.
either, but to be fair, Kevin gets cold much easier than the
That's
rest
true.
of us.
I was
don't
wearing
remember
like a
being
big
cold.
thick jacket. I remember.
The one time I really remember being cold was the first day when we had finished eating lunch and we went to that parking lot to film.
We say
outside.
lunch. It was really like,
was like
dinner.
dinner. Right.
Wait, on
Dinner.
lunch
It was
day?
dinner
The
time,
first
but it was
day.
like
Oh,
We
yeah.
went to the parking lot and it was, hot. It was summer, so I wasn't wearing a jacket. And then it was like
Oh,
the sun
that
was going
parking lot.
down and it was getting really cold. And I was like, now I wish I had a jacket. That's the
Are-
only time I remember being cold.
Wait, was this when we were filming or when we had stopped for lunch?
After when we were about to start filming.
Okay.
It was like the sun was going down and I was like, now I'm cold.
So, Lane, I guess we'll wrap up this movie bit
yeah.
with progress on editing. How do you think it's going?
It's
Because you're the editor.
it's gone. I'd say like faster and more smoothly than I was anticipating.
Yeah, you like sped through the editing, which I have to give you major props for. You did a great job.
Thank you. A lot of it had to do with shooting in 4K because we had done like some small videos in 4K, but we had never done like a movie on, a feature movie like in 4K.
We've done one feature movie, but it was not. We weren't handling raw
Yeah.
footage.
So that was a little bit of like nervous, like up front in terms of like how the computer would be able to handle it.
Mhm.
And not to say that it doesn't chug along sometimes with the editing file, the project file getting so big, but I've encountered, a lot less headache than I thought I would. So that's helped to make it go faster.
I'm just saying, like, well, yeah. So your
But then-
computer it's slowing down a bit as the project gets bigger and bigger, but it's handling it.
Yeah.
But as far as just progress on the editing and how that's going, what do you
But
think?
yeah, in like the creative sense, like I mentioned, it's gone like faster and more smoothly than I expected. So I feel like I'm based on where I thought we would be editing wise after we had wrapped shooting. I feel like we're definitely a lot farther along than I thought we would be.
Oh, that's good. I think you should be very proud of the work that you've done
Thank you.
on this movie. You're welcome.
So to put a nice little bow on it, we don't know when we're doing another podcast. So the plan for this movie once it's done is to, I'm assuming, send it to some festivals.
Well, first we're gonna.
Yeah. Like premiere it.
Yeah, we're gonna rent out a movie theater and premiere it for the cast and crew and family. That's gonna be awesome. But then, yes, we will be submitting to as many festivals as we can afford with the money that we have left in the budget, and hopefully getting some very good news.
Yeah, so that's the plan.
Yeah, by the time we do another podcast, probably all that will have happened.
We will see. Only time will tell. And speaking of time, it's time to move on. and and on this podcast, we like to talk about things we enjoy as well as things that we've been working on. One thing I did want to bring up, this isn't the main topic, but the final James Bond movie of Daniel Craig was finally released. No Time to Die.
Yeah.
I'm assuming we're going to spoil stuff. But really quickly, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, spoiler alert, somebody did have time to die. Yeah, I enjoyed it up until the very end, and I was like, you know what, that kind of ruined it for me.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a good movie. It was a good Bond movie, and I like that the director, his thing is, like, he doesn't like cutting stuff, and he likes to cram as much story as he can in there. And I, as someone who enjoys a director getting his whole vision out there, I think that was good. Yeah, that's my thought.
Kevin?
I really enjoyed the movie. It was, how long was it? It was 2 hours.
It was the longest. It was like at least 2.5.
Yeah. I think it was longer than 2.5.
Yeah.
But it did not feel that long at all. It was like, was it really? Had it been that long? Wow. It moved really quickly. It was just a fun movie. Had a lot of great callbacks to previous Bond movies, Daniel Craig and non-Daniel Craig. And it felt like an instant classic James Bond movie. I thought Rami Malek was so good in that movie. That was some of the best acting I've ever seen from him. Overall, I just loved it. And I thought another like interesting thing that like I didn't really think about this a lot, but the sound work in that movie was really great. Like there was that scene where he would like infiltrated that little party, and then like people started talking, and you could hear in his ear and whatnot, and like just the sound effects of like the microphones, people talking. That was just a really cool sound. Yeah, I just loved it. I thought it was really well done.
I strongly enjoyed it. I don't think I'm quite as glowing as you, but I thought it was very, very solid. I didn't have an issue with the ending where James Bond gets killed off, because I feel like there's been so much like talk and speculation in terms of like how all the other movies supposedly might fit into the Daniel Craig like continuity of James Bond movies, and how they might go on in the future after Daniel Craig. And so I felt like this was just a great way to kind of like put that to bed and just say Daniel Craig's stuff is only with Daniel Craig.
Whatever
and anything
comes
before
next,
or after, this is just isolated.
Yeah.
So
whatever comes next is brand new. It's not a sequel.
So in a way, I kind of appreciated that. And we got some good like action stuff, obviously, as I would expect. And I really like the score. I was worried that Hans Zimmer was, for lack of a better term, going to get too Zimmer. But he like made like a really like truthful like Bond score in terms of it like being very orchestral and brassy. And one thing that hasn't been done very much in really all of the Craig movies is using the James Bond theme liberally. Mm-hmm. So I really enjoyed that.
You can never have enough of that James Bond theme.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's like, I don't know, like other classic themes like in Star Wars where like, you know, you kind of want it. You kind of go into a movie expecting it.
Yeah.
I'd say like the downside to me is that I felt like it could have been a little bit shorter. Mainly not really in terms of story, but I felt like some of the action like set piece stuff. Mainly I'm thinking of once they get to the island and them doing all the infiltrating and going through. I felt like that could have been tightened up. I felt like it got a bit loosey-goosey, and I felt like it lost some momentum because of its length. But that was really the only downside I could pinpoint. Going forward with whenever they get around to doing more James Bond movies, I'm kind of secretly hoping that after all these like long time spans in between the Daniel Craig movies, I kind of want them to just go fast and loose on it and just say like, I don't know, almost like go back to either like the Pierce Brosnan. I'm going to say Roger Moore, even though I'm not talking in terms of like the style of the movie, but in terms of like cranking them out, maybe even sacrificing some of the quality in terms of like quantity.
You want quantity over quality in your James Bond now.
I kind of feel like that. Like
that would be fun, yeah.
I feel like starting with Skyfall, because that was such a massive success. I feel like the movies, Skyfall included, have gotten like a little bit bloated in terms of like the budget and scope. So like I feel like that is like slowing it down or might be hampering it.
Skyfall is a good example though of a movie that it took all that time to make, but it was completely worth it. You know, all that time was spent making a near perfect movie. I have no problems with the movie. I loved it from beginning to end.
Yeah. So like, I kind of might want to see that in the future. Or another thing I was thinking of is like when they hire like, I don't know, a new James Bond or something, plan out like three movies, like have like, I don't know, like a trilogy or something, and commit to that. Yeah, and shoot them back to back. And then at the end of that, then like reassess, do we want to do like another group of movies, or do we want to get a new guy in?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Stuff like that. So then the movies could come out faster, and I don't know, it might be something a little bit different.
Before we move on to the main event, I think there's one more thing that we all watched recently that was fun, which was the Beatles Get Back documentary.
Oh, yeah.
Kyle and I kind of just threw that on a whim, like, let's check this out. It should be cool. And we're not, I think I can speak for all three of us when I say we're not the biggest Beatles fans.
No.
We weren't, not Beatles historians. I'm familiar with the basic story of the Beatles and most of their huge songs. But this was a really cool opportunity to really like get to know all four of them and their personalities and their, songwriting styles, and just watch like the greatest musicians of all time, in other people's words. But, I agree. They make some
hard to dispute, actually.
Yeah.
But
just to watch them work and put together an album. And it was really fun, really cool. And I've seen a lot of people online saying, thank you, Peter Jackson, for putting this together. This is awesome. And I agree. I thought for me, it's like a great history lesson in the Beatles. And it was just really cool to watch like these four musicians put together an album. It was really fun and really cool.
Yeah, what I always tell people when I'm talking about it is it's so cool to see the way they talk to each other, because it's not like, I mean, it's a documentary where they were being filmed making an album, so they're all just being themselves and they're being, creative. So it's really cool to see the way they work together, because it's like, oh, it's the Beatles, but then they're just four human beings too. So they, it's really cool to see that kind of dynamic.
Talk about like what they're eating for lunch and stuff.
And then like, I think George Harrison is somebody who I probably could have told you the least about going into it.
I didn't even really know what he looked like.
Yeah, I was going to say, I couldn't pick him out of a lineup of two people before this. And now I think George Harrison is probably, I think it's a super unpopular opinion, but I think he's the best songwriter of all of them, especially the stuff that he did after the Beatles. I think his post-Beatles music is the best of all of them.
Although
But
it's
his
hard to
songs,
argue
like,
with like Here Comes the
Here
Sun.
Comes the Sun, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, I think are some of the best Beatles songs. And those are not Lennon-McCartney songs.
Here Comes the Sun, by the way, is an old TP classic in that it was used in one of the Halo 3 dance TVs, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was a nice little integration. So yeah, I'm definitely like, I wasn't, very big into the Beatles, really. I'd gotten a bit into like Paul McCartney and stuff since he did that Destiny crossover.
And I love that song. I still listen to that song.
So I'd kind of gotten on the Paul train, and that had kind of gotten me into the Beatles a little bit more.
Plus,
but then,
he made that really awesome James Bond theme too, Live and Let Die. Classic.
But then because of this documentary, I've definitely gotten a lot more into them and their music. I don't know, and appreciating the documentary. Which also, because it had the Peter Jackson angle to it.
Yeah, I saw some comments online that are like, so it's a total of like 8 hours over 3 episodes. And people are like, Peter Jackson made a Peter Jackson length documentary on the Beatles. Like each episode was like 2 hours, 2.5 hours. But thrilling the entire time. Well, maybe not the entire time, but thrilling for most of it.
So, I think without further ado, let's get to the main event.
It's Halo season.
A little game came out called Halo Infinite. Now, the last time we had talked was around E3, and I think at E3 last time they did a multiplayer showing.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we kind of break this down and do it kind of like as we experienced it in terms of, first off, they did some flights for the multiplayer.
Well, how about this? The last time we talked to all the listeners, you and I didn't even have Xbox Series X yet.
Oh, no, we didn't.
So that was something we both were able to secure them on the same day. I had been following, the avenues I had to follow to get one because it wasn't easy.
Yeah, like as we were like driving to Disneyland, we were like refreshing websites and stuff.
So I was like coming home from work one day, and like Best Buy was trending, and so I came home like, Best Buy, like, let me try, like, hopefully. And then it was kind of like hard to believe when I saw like you got one. I was like, I went into Kevin's room and I was like, Kevin, I think I got an Xbox. Like, I don't know for sure. I feel like I did. And then I texted you, and you were able to get one the same day.
Yeah.
And then we got them also the same day. I had to go to Best Buy to pick it up. But my first experience with the Xbox Series X was replaying Mass Effect. I did the Legendary Edition. Mass Effect 2 is one of my favorite games of all time. So I had a cool, introduction to the platform. Lane didn't even open it for how many months?
Yeah, because coincidentally, the time when we got the Xboxes was pretty much right when we were filming the movie.
Yeah.
So I kind of didn't have like the urgent need to. Also, especially because at the time I didn't have a 4K TV, which I remedied. And then once I got that, then I'm like, okay, now I can hook this up and feel like I could take full advantage of the system.
4K TV also helps with editing the movie.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely a dual purpose thing. So yes, we did get those. And of course, the impetus to getting it was to play Halo in kind of like the best way possible. So when the first Infinite Flight came out, I still hadn't hooked up my Series X, so I got to experience it on the original Xbox One.
I wasn't even invited to the first flight.
So it was against bots, and I think this hasn't changed since the flights, that the gunplay and movement is like really fluid and nice. On the Xbox One, it was, I think, it was 30 frames. I'm not sure if it was any faster than that. It kind of didn't. But of course, playing the subsequent flights and then the actual game on the Series X running at 60 plus is definitely a much better experience. And I'm glad I made the upgrade for it.
I was just going to say, when we were first playing the multiplayer before the campaign came out, we were playing on we were doing the multiplayer on the Xbox One X, and then moving from that to the Series X, same game, same TV, everything, it just looks better. Like, it looks,
and it loads faster.
The UI looks faster, the game looks better, and even like loading, like at the end of a game, putting you back in the lobby is like 4 times as fast. Really cool.
The flights, we all kind of had bad experiences just with the timing of the flights, because I remember the first one I felt bad because it was like on the weekend when we were shooting, and I like had to pull Lane away from Halo. I was like, I feel so bad, Lane, like you get to play Halo Infinite for the first time, but not really because we're shooting. And then the last flight happened right as Kyle and I were flying to Idaho for vacation, so we didn't get to play that. But we did get enough experience to kind of feel how the game was. And then once they dropped the multiplayer, throughout playing the flights and that first multiplayer when it dropped early, I kind of felt iffy about it. I think the gunplay was good, but I didn't like the feel, like the aim assist felt really weak, which just made it difficult for me. I guess maybe I'm not that good.
About Apex Legends.
No, I won't. I was going to say, having continued to play it, I feel a lot better at the game now, and the aim assist isn't really a problem for me anymore. I do kind of feel like there's a lack of weapons at the moment.
I guess a lack of like usable weapons.
When you compare the number of weapons in this game to the last game, Halo 5, there could not be a bigger difference. Halo 5 had like the most weapons ever, and Halo Infinite like barely has any compared to Halo 5. I love Halo 5. I think Halo 5 was my favorite for multiplayer. I think it felt the best. It played the best. The sandbox, it was just, for me, my favorite. And that's coming from, the Halo 3 nostalgia guy, where I just played Halo 3 and then Halo Reach all day when those were out. But Halo 5 I just loved the most. So Halo Infinite not feeling like Halo 5 was a problem for me initially. And after playing the campaign, which got me a lot more used to the feel of the game, gave me a new appreciation for the multiplayer. So multiplayer wise, I'm fine with it and I can play it. It's enjoyable.
Yeah. When you brought up the aim assist, that did remind me, with the flights, I was also having, feeling some difficulty with that. Although I felt like by the time the actual multiplayer launched, I didn't feel like that was an issue for me anymore.
It was an issue for me when the multiplayer launched, but it has gone away now. And either I'm used to it or like there's been some more stability. Maybe tweaking. It's both. But it's not an issue for me anymore. I feel like I'm just as good at this game as I was all the previous Halo games, which is good. It's good to feel that way again, because I was good at Halo multiplayer. And to like initially not feel that good made the game not feel good. But now with all my extra experience, it feels just like playing all the other Halo games pretty much.
So I have traditionally not been the greatest Halo player.
This online. Is
fun. Guys, when we all play against each other, who loses every game? 98% of the games.
Kyle.
Yeah.
I'm really good at Halo Infinite.
I've been playing a lot, and I've gotten really good.
I feel like this game is like Kevin's Apex Legends.
Yeah, I mean,
pretty much.
It's crazy because I honestly feel like Kyle might be the best among the three of us when it comes to Halo Infinite, because he's always been the worst among the three of us.
Mm-hmm.
Me and Lane, usually we're either about as good or Lane is usually better than me.
I feel like it really is kind of like, from what I remember when we last kind of like were played with each other regularly locally, it was kind of like usually like a draw between us.
Yeah. I would say a draw between us, or
like it could go either way.
So we always do like a game type that we made up for each other, great for 3 people, where it's 50 kills to win, and it's always like Kevin and Lane trying to get to 50, and I'm
say
like in the 30s.
Lane wins like 40% of the time. I win 30%, and maybe Kyle 20.
I win a couple of games here and there.
Did that add up to 100?
Only when I
think so.
when I happened to spawn with a rocket launcher.
That didn't add up to 90.
You were
I just did the math in my head.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you overestimated me there. But yeah, anyway, Halo Infinite, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just that I'm playing a lot, but I've gotten really good.
Maybe the other players are bad.
And you know what else is that they give you 20 weekly challenges, and I usually, like lately, I've been finishing those in about 2 days. And that's just with like, not even like sitting down and playing for like 6 hours straight. Like, I'm not one of those people. I've just been that good, you know. I hate to say that about myself, but like...
But it's true. It's amazing to watch him because it's like, wow.
That's the Kyle who sucks at Halo.
I know. Kyle has become the Halo master. He keeps calling himself a god. He picks up a sniper and he's like, I'm the snipe god.
No, I've always sucked with the sniper, and I still do. But yeah, actually, the true test will be backing up my talk with us playing against each other when we can finally do that.
Yeah, I mean, like, I haven't fully completed like a weekly set of challenges, and I didn't even know that there was like a set number like 20. Just because the way that the UI is, it's just like a vague mystery to me.
The UI is terrible in this game.
Well, so what? I don't know if you knew that you could do this, but you open up your weekly challenges and then press Y. It'll bring up the upcoming ones, and you can see how many you have.
I had no clue you could do that.
I found it accidentally one time, and then I was like, how did I do that? It was like a couple weeks of like, where? And then I see it down at the very bottom, like small text. Press Y to bring up upcoming weekly challenges.
Like to me, it's just like you see like your daily and then the 3 that you had active, and then just beyond that, it's just like a mystery. Like,
yeah, the UI is really terrible in this game, which is just crazy. Like, why would they make it that bad?
One thing I have seen that I didn't realize was kind of a problem until I saw this comment, and then I agreed with it, which is like when you're scrolling through all the customization options, it's horizontally. And this comment that I saw said, like, why did they not go vertically? Like, everyone knows that when you have a bunch of customization options, do it vertically so you scroll down instead of across. And it's like, gosh, yeah, that would make it so much easier.
Yeah, so some of the issues that we have, and I mean, honestly, everyone has with the game. The customization, I feel like
they're not rewarding you for playing the game whatsoever. Like, you finish the campaign, you get nothing. You play the multiplayer, you get pretty much nothing. You get the battle pass, you get some stuff, but not. There's nothing in that battle pass that makes me go, I have to buy this battle pass.
And we have not.
Yeah, we're playing the free way, the free strategy. And people have been pointing out, obviously, like the egregious kind of like prices that they have of buying like stuff in the store outside of the battle pass. And while that is kind of like something that I think should be fixed, that's not like my main issue with it. My main issue is just like there being nothing for free players to unlock.
Which doesn't feel like Halo, right? Halo has always been about you play the game and you get a bunch of fun customization options.
Like I feel like the incentive to buy the battle pass now, even though like right now it's all like reach armor and all that is cool, and stuff. But I feel like my main incentive right now to buy the battle pass is not because of how great that stuff is, but because of how sucky the other stuff is that we essentially don't have or take a long time. Like it feels like really weird to me, like that going into it and even playing for like a month, essentially I still only have one helmet.
Yeah, we only have one helmet.
I mean, if you count like the other armor core, which I feel like you can't because that's kind of like a bundle. Since
the armor core thing is stupid.
Yeah.
But yeah, and like by the end of when we complete the free version of the battle pass, we'll have, I think, 3 helmets, maybe 2.
3,
yeah.
Including the default.
That's ridiculous. And then there's not even going to be another new battle pass until May. That battle pass, that season 2 better be the best battle pass of all time, because they know now.
Yeah, so that's my issue with it, is lack of free stuff, and it seems like they've kind of heard that. Kyle, I'm sure you've heard that when the new like event Yori comes back, they're kind of opening up the more premium armor to unlock for free now. Yeah. So it seems like they're starting to be a little more generous with that. But it's kind of regrettable how it is right now.
I would like to move on to the campaign, though, because that's where I feel like this game truly shines.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because you have to pay for that. But it's totally worth it.
Okay, so yeah. So we're going to go into the spoilers here.
Should we do maybe like a quick no spoiler section and then say, okay, here's where we'll get into spoilers?
Yeah. Yeah, why not? Sure. So first of all, we got it digitally, and we had it day of, we downloaded it, and we played through. I took the route of kind of doing like the smell the roses approach, where I would kind of do like a story mission and then go around and do like as much of like the roaming around inside stuff
you played
before going on to the next
you played
section.
The game the way that I played Red Dead Redemption 2.
I think that's correct.
Yeah.
And so I didn't beat it until like I'd say close to a week after it came out.
I think we did like 3 days.
I think it was the 3rd day that we finished it. Yeah. Definitely a very long game, which is excellent, I think.
Yeah, I prefer long.
Not
too long, but long games.
It felt great. It played great. It really, like when compared to Halo 4 and 5, because this game was also made by 343, post Bungie, it really was the most Bungie feeling campaign of them all. And I don't know if bringing Joe Staten in had anything to do with that, because the campaign was already mostly finished by then. But I'm sure it didn't hurt. It just like the sandbox, the level design in the campaign really felt like Bungie to me. And also the writing, like the dialogue and the characters and like the enemies, the classic style. Grunts look like grunts again, and they sound like grunts, and elites look like elites, and brutes and jackals and jackal snipers, and like it just really felt like Halo and looked like Halo, which for me, I didn't realize like how much that had been missing in Halo 4 and 5 until I played this game, and it's like, wow, they really went back to like this looks like Halo 1, Halo 2, Halo 3. It feels like it when you're playing it. And like the way Halo 5 had all those extra Spartan abilities, right? The booster and the ground pound and all that. And they kind of took all that away. There's like less abilities, but also some new stuff like the grapple hook and whatnot. It didn't feel like a step backwards from all the Halo 5 abilities.
It just felt like more of like a refinement.
Yeah, more of a refinement. It just felt like I said, just it feels really good, and it feels a lot more like classic Halo than Halo 4 and 5.
I essentially echo pretty much everything that you said.
Yeah.
Kyle?
I'm ready to get into spoilers because I almost said something twice.
Okay.
Yeah. Spoilers start now.
Just speaking in like the broad sense, I felt like this was probably like the most like heartfelt Halo story that there was. I feel like before that, people would say like 4 was definitely the most like
Halo 4 had like a
emotional-
heartbreaking ending for sure.
Yeah, so I felt like that was like the most. I think the term that I used was soulful.
Yeah.
Halo campaign. So I felt like 4 was that before this game, but then this definitely I felt exceeded that in the best way possible.
Yeah, so actually what I was going to say that was going to spoil it was that you can play more after the end of the main mission. You can keep playing. And so we actually did do a lot of what you were doing after we finished. So we kind of have done pretty much everything that you can do. But we do need to go back in and get like all the stuff that we missed and the missions that you can't replay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was going to say about the story, what you guys were saying, I kind of agree with. It was really like character driven more so than like Halo 1 was really about exploring the ring and trying to, defeat the Covenant and find out all this information, blah, 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 where,
Halo 4 and 5 just got bogged down with like complicated story.
And Halo Infinite was kind of, the same as, you get on this ring, you want to explore it, there's the Banish, all this, blah, 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 but it really is about like these 3 characters.
And one thing that I was worried about, I guess, Halo Infinite, and first of all, obviously, there's no dispute, Halo 5 is like the worst story campaign out there.
For multiple reasons.
And in terms of Halo 5 and where things left off in terms of Cortana being evil and getting all the AI on her side and humanity kind of being like cast out and kind of having to be a bit scrappy, that wasn't really like, I didn't have like an issue with them taking that direction. So I'm glad that in this one, they didn't really like sweep that under the rug.
Yeah, I was
because I felt like leading up to it, that's kind of what they were going to do and almost act like it never happened or just touch on it in like the audio logs or something like that. But I was very surprised and glad that it was essentially like resolving from Halo 5 was like the emotional linchpin of this whole campaign.
Yeah, I was going to say like they could have done a direct sequel to Halo 5, which would have just been continuing that dumb story, which I wouldn't have wanted. They could have completely forgotten about all that and done like a reboot, which I mean they kind of did, but they did a great job of making a new story that is fun and interesting and you want to play and you want to find out everything that's going on. But also that stuff that happened in Halo 5 did happen and they address it, but they don't make it like complicated in the way that they did in Halo 4 and 5. So I think story-wise, it was well done. They told the story in a really nice way. And what I want to talk about, my favorite part of the campaign, was the weapon, this new AI. And I think Jen Taylor deserves an award for her performance in this game. But the weapon, I just love her so much. I think she's even more fun than Cortana. I love, like, the way I described her was like the wide-eyed new AI who's learning how to be an AI and how to have a partnership with Master Chief and like discovering who she is and what her purpose is. And she's just like a lot of fun and a lot of like fun to listen to and hang out with as the Master Chief.
I forget if I had mentioned this to you both or just one of you, but I kind of experienced that same thing where it was kind of like I had like a revelation, like at one point playing this, where the weapon says some sort of like quippy dialogue, and then I was reminded, like, we haven't heard like this type of like fun like banter really since Halo 2.
Yeah.
Because after Halo 2, Cortana was like messed up and captured, and then
either
going
not there
evil
or rampant.
So yeah, it made me realize how much of that interplay was responsible for lending this kind of like lightheartedness to the campaign. Not to say that there isn't like some serious stuff in the campaign, but there's room for like some lightheartedness.
Yeah, and in the previous like Halo 1 and 2, it is, Cortana having some quips, but not like in Infinite. Even the Master Chief is like has some funny dialogue that is like James Bond level quipping that's like not something that we gotten before. Like there was one line that I really liked where I don't remember exactly what it was now, but something like the weapon said something like I forget, but then he's like never mind.
Was it where she's like, "Are you afraid? Are you nervous?"
No, it was like talking about I don't know. Never mind.
Yeah, but like the relationship that they had and the just playing off of each other and having funny dialogue and funny one-liners. It's like, this is like Halo has needed this.
I think
It's
I
been
remember it.
missing.
It was, she said something like, "It's not going to be fun," and he's like, "For them." Do you remember that?
I feel like that might be because after you had mentioned like, oh, there's some like great quips in this campaign, I felt like soon after that, when I was continuing my run through, there was like a quip that happened, and I'm like, oh, that's like exactly what you were describing.
Yeah.
I felt like it might be that point, that one.
Yeah.
And there are also a lot of surprises in this game. For example, Stacker shows up, which is really cool, and I think they like repurposed or replayed old dialogue, but then I think there was also some new dialogue.
I think
that
you're
we
talking
haven't
about
heard.
Keys.
Captain Key.
I said Stacker, but yes, Keys, absolutely. Was Keys played by a guy named Stacker? Is that what I was thinking of?
Pete Stacker was played by... No, Pete Stacker is an actor.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes.
I think
Keys.
he also played a Marine named Stacker.
Yeah.
So that might be where
so
the
Keys
confusion
shows
is.
up, which is super cool, and like they're playing like old moments from Halo 1
and from like stuff that we've never seen before from the Fall of Reach book as well. So all that stuff was all fantastic.
Yeah, and then just seeing like Cortana's design was a lot more classic Cortana, and like her hair had like moving numbers on it, whatever.
Code.
Yeah. So like just like the design of everything. And I think the weapon too, they did a great job of making her look like a Cortana type AI, but not Cortana, somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And that was another thing about the weapon, was that she wasn't made to be an AI who has a partner who's partnered with a Spartan. She was made for this other purpose. So that was cool that, like you said, she's learning how to be an AI, learning how to have a partner who is the Master Chief. It was cool to see that.
Going into this, I was kind of speculating in terms of the story of like what I felt like would be a satisfying direction that they could go to. So going into this, I was thinking like, in an ideal sense, Master Chief would somehow have to like come to grips with Cortana being gone. And I was expecting like that having to do with like him having to like essentially like deactivate the weapon or delete her, because he couldn't like do it with Cortana and like say goodbye and like deactivate her. So I felt like he would have to kind of like own up to that, accept it, and then have to like delete the weapon. But I felt like the direction that they went in this essentially accomplished that without having to actually kill the weapon off.
Yeah, and it's nice to know, like, now in future Halos, or whatever comes next, we don't have to worry about what's going on with Cortana anymore. Now it's Master Chief and the weapon, and or whatever
New Cortana.
whatever she names herself. And like that's the partnership going forward, which to me, maybe because I like the weapon so much, maybe is more fun than Master Chief and Cortana.
I feel like certainly how their relationship ended after 5, I felt like even if Cortana was like back, they couldn't go back to being that fun, having that fun interplay. So yeah, I felt very satisfied by the story.
Mm-hmm. What?
Oh, I was going to say, like, with the story out of the way, just navigating like the open world.
Well, real quick, while we're still talking about characters, the villains were really cool. Like Escharum was like a big grand villain that we haven't really had in Halo before, at least in this way, and it was really well done. He's just like really, it was cool, like Halo 2 style, when it would cut to him talking to his guys, and you get that relationship like with him and that elite, and that was really cool to see. And it was also just like another fun character to watch him develop, and what's his plan, his motivation, and wanting to take out the Master Chief. Like, that was just another fun aspect of the story. It was the villain. It was really well done.
Kyle, did you have anything to say before I
go ahead.
Go into the open world? I felt like going into this game, like, I felt like I went in with like my expectations at a very good level in terms of things not being overblown.
Yeah.
And expecting
how is the open world going to work?
Yeah, expecting too much. Because they had said, before that it wasn't, like a true open world game, and that it was kind of more like an expansive like hub, like it was in kind of ODST and stuff. So based on them saying that and kind of the demo that they had shown at E3, that's kind of what I was expecting. But in my opinion, what I felt like we got is an open world game, essentially.
Yeah, what I've seen a lot of people describe it as, and what I kind of agree with, is that it's almost like Far Cry with the Halo skin on it, because I had just played Far Cry 6 right before this, and it was a lot of the same, like capture a fob is the type of thing that you do in Far Cry, where you capture this base and then it's a place that you can fast travel to and do all this stuff from. So it's definitely not as deep of a like role-playing kind of open world thing as Far Cry, but it was similar. And I enjoyed that aspect of it. It's something that I was actually like going into it like, Halo is like a mission type game. Like, I don't know if open world is going to work, if it's going to feel like Halo, but they did a damn good job.
It's actually really cool. Like, I felt the same way. Like, I just kind of want to play this mission, then this mission, then this mission, and be able to replay those classic Halo style. But then you play this open world, and you're like upgrading your abilities, and you're like unlocking more weapons and stuff, and it's becoming more and more fun the more you explore and the more you do. It's like, I actually
working towards unlocking the Wasp.
Yeah, it's like I actually really like this, and it's fun, and I can go, I can go over to this place and do this thing, and it's a lot easier than it would have been, 10 hours ago. It's, and it, like Lane said, it is a true open world game, even if they said it wasn't. I mean, it's not like go to this spot and you'll meet this guy and he gives you this side quest and then you can work on that and go work on another mission. Not really. But you do, like, as you,
in terms of like the map size,
as you like and explore an area, you find this place, and then that place is its own mission, and you can do that or not, or come back to it later. So in that sense, it's an open world. It's not like full of side quests. I mean, there are like side questy type things, but it's not like a new mission with story.
It was actually something I was going to say was that one of the most fun parts of the game for me was the high value targets.
Oh,
where it's like sort of mini bosses that you can go around and fight and then get like this kind of like more powerful version of weapon. I thought that was honestly really cool. And that there's like enemies of every type. Like there's a couple grunts that are high value targets that are like big, boss types like shields and whatnot, or like hunters, from grunts to hunters, all these different kind of bosses. And that was fun. It was well done.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of my run through just like exploring the world and just trying to like grapple to different places and climbing mountains and stuff.
The grapple is so much fun too. It's like Halo needed this for sure.
And Halo Infinite definitely needed it.
And I feel like it seems to me, like especially with the 4 and 5 campaign, it was a little more, I don't know, they kind of like battened down the hatches in terms of like being able to like sneak out of maps and I don't know, like glitch out of places. And I feel like people always want to like explore and go to like the next place or like just experience something bigger. And I felt like with this being able to like go through all of this terrain and like not have a loading screen and stuff, it felt like kind of like magical almost. Like especially when you're driving up and you like go up to like a mountain and stuff, and then you look out and you're like looking at like all the Halo scenery and stuff,
and it's a sunset or a sunrise because there's a day-night cycle now.
Yeah, and you kind of just like stop and pause, and you're like, wow, this is like a Halo game, and I'm able to do all this stuff.
Yeah, or like you said, come up to a mountain where in the past that would be an invisible wall and you cannot go up that mountain.
Yeah,
but in this game you can look at that mountain and climb to the very top of it, and maybe there will be a skull there or something.
Yeah, that's what I was saying to Kyle at one point when we were playing. I was like, we're on top of this huge space. You can look around and see this gigantic area around you, and you can go anywhere that you see. And previously, that was not how Halo worked. There's this big, cool vista off in the distance, and that's all it is, something off in the distance. But now it's a playable space, and that's really cool.
Yeah, and even if like there's areas on the map where, and I feel like this is kind of like a lot of it is like where you're like, it's like a built out location, and there's not really like anything necessarily there. But it could have been a situation where like they could have like blocked that off or not even made it. But the fact that you can go there is just so much more satisfying.
Yeah, and there's also little hidden nooks and crannies and like Easter eggs in there too, which is cool.
Mm-hmm. So just like navigating the whole world is just, I found it to be like a blast.
Yeah.
And I don't know, thinking of possibilities, like I wonder if you like created some sort of like unofficial like race circuit that goes throughout the whole place.
Oh, wow.
And then like once co-op comes along, doing like funky stuff like that is just like doing like a race throughout the whole world or something like
who
that.
Who can get from here to here.
Yeah.
So you know what is also a quintessential part of the Halo experience since 2007 is game fuel.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It couldn't be a true blue Halo experience without our Mountain Dew game fuel. And Kyle, being the Dew expert, you delivered the goods.
Yeah. I had
You had
a plug who gave me the stuff.
I wouldn't say like an inside man, but you had a source.
I had a source who delivered me some. You can't get it where we live, but somebody who lives somewhere where you can get it sent me enough. Have you been?
I've still only had one bottle out of the 3.
That's some restraint right there.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
we're down to one more. I don't know what I'm going to save it for.
But yeah, so cracking that open the first day of playing through, and I've gone on about like kind of like some subpar soda experiences in terms of like me feeling like there wasn't enough carbonation and all that stuff. This tasted, and the texture and the fizziness, it was like exactly how I remembered it.
Perfect.
So it was.
There's
It
just
was
something
perfect.
So well
magical
flavored.
about Game Fuel and specifically a new Halo campaign. It just goes so well together.
It's peanut
It-
butter and jelly.
It was like made to promote Halo. That was
Yeah.
how it launched.
That's
so
what the flavor is for. Is Halo.
even though it's gotten tacked on to other
Yeah.
games, it's the Halo
And
soda.
I've probably said this before, but like, I have such good memories associated with it from so far back. Just, we would come over here and spend the night playing through the campaign, and we'd be drinking those.
Those and like eating
Yeah.
pizzas and
And so what I've been saying is it could be the worst flavor of all time. And because I associate it with such good memories, I don't know.
yeah.
But I love
maybe
it.
it's bad. We don't
I
know.
know. It's because
You
it's
can't
like,
tell.
I generally don't like I kind of like cherry stuff, but like cherry in general, the
That's not-
aftertaste is kind of
yeah.
medicinal,
It's
and
not-
orange
yeah.
flavor as well. And this is a
Mhm.
citrus cherry flavor, and it's my favorite tasting thing, I think.
Yeah. It's hard to beat, especially when you're gaming,
Yeah.
doing that stuff.
When you're playing a new Halo game. A new Halo game doesn't come out all the time. It's
No.
not an every year thing.
Obviously, we know that.
Yeah.
It used to be every 3 years. Now this is what, 6? Something like
Yeah.
that.
So I'm looking forward to maybe by the next time we do a podcast, knock on wood, we'll be able to experience this campaign together and
Yeah, that's going to be exciting.
make some apps and start in on that next kind of phase. But before we wrap up, obviously I mentioned the open world, but the whole, like, I guess you would say like the art direction of the game was just spot on. And walking through these Forerunner hallways
Oh yeah.
was like sipping a fine wine in terms of like it brought back like Halo 1 vibes.
Yeah,
and
it's Halo 1.
and especially because especially during the latter half of the story mode, you're walking through hallways that feel the same, and you're kind of like going through some sections that kind of reminded me of like the library in Halo 1 in terms of like making you go around like these I don't know, almost like barricaded off spots.
Yeah, and then there's
and
like
stuff.
grunts around the corner and jackals up top shooting at you. It's like, wow, this is what Halo used to be.
So that gave me very like nostalgic vibes.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, and I appreciated like in Halo 3 you had like that Forerunner type stuff, but I felt like everything was very like well lit. In this game I felt like weren't afraid to like make things like dark
Moody.
and
gloomy,
moody.
yeah.
And I really felt like that enhanced things.
Yeah.
It made it feel more like Halo 1 and 2.
Yeah, I agree.
So, on that note, really quickly, if you had to slot Halo Infinite in to the ranking of all Halos,
Well, see,
Are we
I-
talking campaign?
yeah, I'd say just campaign.
I always have a hard time doing this because I feel like with at least 1 and 3, and maybe to a degree 2, I would have trouble ranking those just because they're so...
it's like me with the original Star Wars
yeah,
movies.
You can't...
They come out as a package,
I would say this
and
is,
together they're unbeatable.
this is by far, I mean, no contest at all, the best 343
Yeah.
one. Is it better than any of the Bungie ones? I'm gonna
Hard
have
to say because
It's hard to
even-
say for us.
Yeah,
Even
I'm gonna
Halo
have
Reach was so good,
Yeah.
so classic, so much fun. Those missions are so replayable, and like to me, they feel
I
classic
think
at this point.
this is a question that you got to ask me again in 5 years.
Yeah,
And then maybe I'll have
but
an
my
answer.
immediate feeling is the same as what you guys have said. It's hard to slide it in anywhere in between Halo 1, 2, and 3, but it's definitely up there with them as like, this is as good as a Halo campaign can get. This is the potential, Halo reaching its potential. Like Halo 1, 2, and 3. Yeah. Halo 1, 2, and 3 were also, those are like, that's top tier.
Yeah.
That's as good as Halo gets. And then Halo 4 and 5 were a dip, or maybe a large dip. Halo Infinite is back up to this.
Slots
is
in there.
Yeah, this is where Halo is supposed to be. This is what it's supposed to feel like.
I agree with that, and I feel like this is campaign-wise, and my enjoyment of the campaign, I feel like this could probably go above Reach.
Probably
for me. I feel like that's the Bungie game that it could beat out for me. It's hard for me to say whether it could with ODST or not, because I feel like that's just kind of such its own thing. In terms of like the mood and style of ODST, I felt like it was really neat, and I'm glad that they did that. In terms of like my sheer enjoyment and fun playing it,
sorry if that was that.
I feel like Infinite might have ODST beat, just because of grappling to all that places and all of the
there's no
fun
grapple
stuff,
hook in ODST.
all the fun stuff you can do in the open world. But yeah, that's where I would put it as well.
Yeah.
And
Halo is
yeah,
back to where it's supposed to be with this game, definitely.
So I'm sure our thoughts will evolve and gestate as things expand and hopefully get more like solidified and fleshed out.
Hopefully we get like more campaign missions too.
I mean, I think it seems like that was at least what their plan initially was.
They certainly set up more.
Yeah.
Do I want to wait another 3 to 6 years to have another story? No.
Yeah.
I think let's have some story DLC. That'd be really cool.
Even if it's like, I'd love for them to do like almost another like an ODST or an even smaller
Just
like
tell a small story
game. Like, I know like they've had this whole deal with getting back to playing as the Master Chief, and obviously that's the right thing to do. But I also feel like I wouldn't mind like a side story of like, say like a Spartan aboard the Infinity when it gets attacked and experiencing that whole
You know what else would be
thing.
cool is like a story where you play as the Master Chief, but it's not some big, it affects the entire universe. You have to play it to understand what's going to happen next. Like just its own contained story of a cool thing that he does. But it's like after Halo Infinite, so it's, you've got the weapon with you, and maybe the other, what was it, Echo 216 or something. Just them going on another mission. It's just some small fun thing that doesn't affect the universe. That would be cool too.
Yeah, that'd be like kind of like traditional like DLC styled for open world games. So, with that, we've gone on for a good while.
Things up.
Yeah, I think we'll wrap up. So, I don't anticipate we'll be putting out new videos anytime soon because we're plugging away on that movie. But you could keep up with us. We all have our own personal Twitter accounts. I'm at Lane Thomas.
I don't remember what my Twitter is, but follow me on Instagram.
Okay.
You can find my Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok are at Kevin_Brio, and then Instagram at Losers of Eden to follow along with the movie.
Yeah,
which I
and
think
then
you should do, and I'll send you, follow me and I'll send you the teaser.
And then also, of course, all the Thomas Productions accounts, including at Thomas Pro Inc. on Twitter, and I believe Instagram is the same. With major stuff, like especially with the movie, when like a major thing happens, we'll be sure to like cross post there and stuff.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think that's all for now. I hope everyone has a nice holiday season, and we look forward to what is to come in the new year. All right. Until next time, I'm Lane.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Kevin.
Talk to you later. Hello. Okay, I blew out the microphone on that.
You have to keep that.
Okay, that's the outtake. Hello and welcome to... No.
That was...
Okay, I'll just turn that down.